I'm here to talk about Board Bill 18, which is modifying and updating interior requirements for properties. So basically, it's really two parts. The first part is, I think most of the people on this committee voted in favor of the rental registry bill last session, and what that does. So in that process, the interior requirements, like the safety requirements such as walls, ceilings, and doors being in conditions, plumbing working properly, ceilings being 7 feet high, et cetera, all those interior requirements were included in Exhibit A, but they weren't actually codified in the bill. So this bill codifies those, so we don't have to refer people to Exhibit A of an amendment or of an ordinance when they have questions about what building inspectors look for when they're doing interior inspections. And then the second part of this bill is essentially making it more family-friendly and friendlier for non-traditional families, particularly multi-generational families, families that may have small children. So we're not changing the current occupancy rules when it comes to the square footage of space. Each person will still have at least 150 feet of square space. Bedrooms must be at least 70 square feet. What does change is that the main bedroom or the master bedroom no longer has to be the biggest, which is in the old occupancy requirements. The limit of 2 people in the main bedroom is removed. And then children under 6 years old won't count towards the total number of people. And again, in this conversation that we've had in the city of how do we bring more people and increase our population, and we've seen data and statistics that, one, this is a bill that supports immigrant families, and they were one of the populations that cut back on the population loss. 2, we talk a lot about wanting to make St. Louis a family-friendly city, and this is one way to do that by basically updating our code and modernizing it to adjust to different kinds of families, like multi-generational families, like families that may have several small children. Those are the real key pieces and the key parts of this legislation. A question that you may have is how will the city determine ages of children when enforcing occupancy limits? And that is up to the discretion of city code enforcement officers and building inspectors, and I have Commissioner Ware here from the building to testify. They will determine whether further investigation needs to happen, or determine whether they'll use their judgment to continue to determine the number of children. So those are really the two key pieces of this. It's pretty straightforward. It codifies Exhibit A. It changes some of the kind of antiquated requirements for non-traditional families that we may think about. It does not do anything for occupancy limits for short-term rentals. It does not touch that at all. And it does follow in line other cities who've done similar things, such as.
The only real changes that has occurred is the limitation on the master bedroom to no more than 2 people, whereas now it's just going to be based on the square footage. Some of these master bedrooms are huge. And previously, we did not count any child 30 months or younger, and this has been moved up to 6 years. All of the other important code public safety issues with the smoke detectors and the means of egress and the structural issues and all the mechanical, electrical, and everything else that we're concerned about is still current and in place. So we don't see a dramatic change in the bill. It's just a little bit of a tweaking of sorts. That part
the only time a property is inspected in the city is whether there's a permit pulled or a complaint made against that property. The city is not proactively evaluating properties for code violations.
That would be correct, yes. As far as block-to-block surveys that we did some time ago, that has been put on a back burner until we get fully staffed again. You are correct on that, sir.
So the city's still not inspecting code violations unless it is reported or there is a permit pulled for that property. And some would argue that even when permits are pulled, the properties are not properly inspected. That's not a matter of debate.
I'd have to be defensive to my inspection staff when a permit is pulled or if they respond to a complaint. I am under the strong assumption that they are doing the job they're supposed to do, sir.
So, I'm a little flabbergasted when I hear that the building division has the capacity to take on or enforce something when we aren't actively enforcing many of the codes that are on our books right now. That's always just a general concern of mine until we actually start adequately staffing our building department. And if we're not able to ascertain the age of occupants, how would we allow an unlimited number underneath a certain age?
Well, just being truthful with you, Alderman, I cannot guarantee we can ascertain the age of a child. As far as manpower inside the department, we're still performing the same inspection. The same inspections being performed. The only two changes in the housing conservation inspection is the limitation of just 2 only in the master bedroom and the age limitation of the children inside the family of being raised from 30 months to 6. But the same safety inspection is being performed by the same people.
Would you agree that there's a difference in size between a child that is 30 months and a child that is 6 years old?
Well, of course I would.
Oftentimes, if I ever reach out about overcrowding, and I don't see anything in Ward 1 in the last year, but it's less about children in the property and more about a large number of adults in the property, especially related to, people will suspect drug sales or different issues of crime occurring, and they'll reach out, and that'll be one of the tools in the toolbox. Does this bill change that at all for how many adults are allowed in any amount of space?
Only on the part about limiting the master bedroom to 2. It could very well, if it's a large master bedroom, the occupant load may increase by 1 or 2. I don't know.
But it doesn't
These are
change
hypotheticals.
the square footage allowed. So
Square footage allowed is still the same. Everything's still the same.
So to Alderman Cohn's example, you have a 600 square foot one bedroom unit. How many adults are allowed in that unit, and does it change between this board bill and our current code?
It does not. It's still the same square footage calculation.
Ideas. As we talked to neighborhood groups, one theme that emerged was that having easier and consistent access to information about things affecting their neighborhood would actually help them be more effective. Another theme that emerged as we talked to residents was that groups don't always know about each other. Residents don't always know about groups in their geographic area or how to become a leader within an existing group. And some neighborhoods have overlapping groups while others don't have a group at all. The working group eventually concluded that a simple registry of active neighborhood groups paired with a more systematic approach to notifying those groups about decisions affecting their neighborhood would be one way to better support neighborhoods. First, it provides a mechanism for voluntary registration and annual renewal so that the information in the registry remains accurate and available to everyone. Registered groups directly receive copies of certain public notices that are relevant to their geographic area. There's no funding tied to being a registered group. It provides a public registry so that it's easier to see the locations and basic information about each group, increasing opportunities for groups to work together and avoid duplication of efforts, as well as providing a common starting place for engagement by city agencies and others who are seeking neighborhood input. And third, it uses simple eligibility criteria designed to increase the likelihood that residents within the group's boundaries know about it and can meaningfully participate in it, and that it represents the geography it serves. There were several iterations of this aspect as the working group tried to find the right balance of having some standards without being overly prescriptive or creating a registry that was too time-consuming or difficult to administer. For example, the criteria leave latitude for groups to operate with their own norms as to membership, decision-making, and leadership, as long as those norms are transparent in some kind of publicly available written document. The majority of their members live in the geography, and the group covers a reasonable area. So for some groups, this might mean formal registration with the state and bylaws and C3 status, but for other groups, it might be as simple as a very short constitution or other document that just sets out their purpose and basic operation for an unincorporated association. And finally, it requires that city agencies consult the registry and include RNOs in community engagement activities. RNOs are not the exclusive means of engagement, of course, just intended to be a starting place.
Our program provides free legal assistance to dozens of city neighborhood associations and community development corporations. I am here to speak in support of Board Bills 44 and 45. I believe the proposed legislation has two main benefits. First, there are now many gaps in the fabric of community organizations serving our city neighborhoods. Some neighborhoods have very strong neighborhood groups, others have none. Knowing where these groups exist can be the first step in providing increased resources, support, services to those neighborhoods like those provided by my office. Second, the expanded and targeted notice will be available to neighborhood groups under this proposed legislation will lead to more informed and engaged citizenry. On more occasions than I can count, a neighborhood has sought the assistance of our program because they've been confronted by a development proposal that is objectively harmful for the community, for which there is little to no community support. Liquor stores, pawn shops, gas stations, by an example. These particular uses have profound negative effects on the people who live nearby. Yes, the law already provides some posting and notice requirements to affected residents, but sometimes these notices don't reach the entire community. They blow away in bad weather, or they're taken down by a bad actor who doesn't want to have community input around a particular proposal. This just adds an additional layer of notice through a recognized neighborhood organization that can promote a more proactive conversation between residents and developers and help ensure the communities are informed of their democratic right to participate in public hearings.